on mindset, talking about mindset. I do feel like, at least for me, that's the word for the year. To focus on mindset, and it's going to crop up again, I'm sure, because that's kind of what the Lord's doing in me right now, and so I know I'll share it again. This week, though, I want to talk to you about a victim mindset. There's an attitude that we can have because of things that have happened. And just to name a few and these are recurring things, that when they recur over a period of time, we have an expectation of these things, injustices. When an injustice occurs, we begin to expect injustice or dishonor. This material is actually from a guy who wrote a little booklet called The Victim Spirit, and in it he talks about the dishonor. He was, for a period of time, he was a plumber, and he said that as a plumber, that he was dishonored because people assume a plumber is going to rip you off, and that they're making lots of money he actually was employed for a plumbing company, and he's like, I got a salary just like everybody else, and he said he was just dishonored because he was a plumber, and he said it was just a measure and it was just a recurring thing. Malpractice. There are people, I would even say with Miss Jean, we've seen that combating over and over again. Wrong diagnosis, they know what they need to do, but they're not doing it. There's some things that they shared in the early stages that it was apparent to everybody except the people who were looking at it. And, but it was a malpractice. It was just over and over again. Then there can be a devouring spirit. I can say, or devouring that occurs. We used to have in November every year, we had a period of time when every year in November, there was lots of breakdowns, flat tires, just a slew of things that would happen every November. And there was just a devouring of resource. There can also just be defilement, whether that defilement be through abuse or something like that. But because of these recurring situations in people's lives, it begins to be an expectation. And the victim mindset can also be coupled with a victim spirit. And this is not, you're not going to read it in the Bible where it says there's a spirit, his name is victim or whatever, but the victim spirit is like a beacon over people's lives. And it attracts to them wrong situations. It attracts to them people who have been abused. They generally are abused multiple times in multiple different venues. It's not a one-time thing. And it's because there's a spirit that comes and it just is attached to that person's life and is like a beacon. And it's just, I can say for me, there's a period of time where it was like I was invisible. I literally could go places and I'd be there and I could go to a restaurant and I could stand at the door of a restaurant and I would just stand there. And people would come in and they would seat everybody who was standing around me. I'm just standing. I'm like, excuse me. And they say, oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to be seated? It's like, yes. And so they would take me to a table. I would sit down. And I couldn't get anybody to wait on me. It was like they just kept walking past the table. And until I would call out to somebody, it was like I was invisible. And this kind of attitude this spiritual atmosphere that is around us can cause our mindsets to shift. And it convinces a person, listen, this is the biggest deal. It can convince the person that there's nothing they can do, that you just must accept it. It's just the way things are. And that is the victim mindset. When we get into that attitude, because of what's happened to us, we begin to expect wrong to happen. We expect, why? Because, well, that's what always happens. Well, that's what happens. You know, a popular saying in the South is, well, when it rains, it pours. You know, well, things always happen in 3. So did the resurrection. It happened on the 3rd day. So, you know, I mean, things don't always have to happen in 3. There's only one guy named Jesus. That's one. Things that happen in 3s, yes, absolutely. But there's things that happen in 7s. There's things that happen in 8s. You know, there's things that happen, and we can't just expect wrong to happen. When we expect wrong to happen, you know what we will find is wrong happening. Because actually, we will either, me personally, I set the way this occurs in my life is I set myself up for failure. When I begin to have a measure of success, I will set myself up for failure. And then it just happens. But you need to know, first of all, that we have been deputized. Say, I've been deputized.
I've been deputized.
In Matthew chapter 10, verses 7 and 8, it says, as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. Jesus deputized his disciples, and that deputization has been passed on to us. It is passed on to us. This was before Jesus was crucified. He gives them the power to do this before the cross. It's not like he was waiting till he went to heaven to empower his disciples. He said, no, I'm empowering you now. We're going to preach kingdom and we're going to do kingdom. And so he began to say, kingdom of heaven is at hand. At hand. It's right here. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. It's also where we live. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 13, it says, for he has rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. God has moved us positionally into a new kingdom. We are positioned in the new place. Now, we may not be thinking that way, but generally what happens is, when I moved to Iowa from South Carolina, I moved positionally, but when winter came, I was not exactly equipped for the cold. I mean, I thought I was. My nice big fluffy coat that I got in South Carolina, it worked great in South Carolina. It didn't, I was freezing. And so I had moved positionally, but I had not positionally moved in my brain. I was not making full adjustments. And so our life is to make the adjustment. My life is to make the adjustment of, I no longer live in the kingdom of darkness. I have been transferred, some translations say translated, to the kingdom of his beloved Son. I don't live in darkness anymore. Darkness encroaches and is trespassing when it comes into my domain, into your domain. Darkness is trespassing. Therefore, Jesus gave us what I'll call stomping power. In Luke chapter 10, verse 17 through 20, it says, and the 70 returned. Jesus had sent out the 70, and they come back. And they returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Behold, I've given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. And nothing will injure you. Nevertheless, I do not rejoice in this. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven. The powerful thing he says is that our names are recorded in heaven. the powerful thing is that because our names are recorded in heaven, we have stomping power. We have the ability to tread on serpents and scorpions. Now I want to give you a couple of words out of this. In the Greek, sometimes we get things kind of mixed up, but the term here is it says he gave them authority. He says that when he was watching Saints, he says, behold, I have given you authority. The word authority means the empowerment to act or do something. It is in other words, he gave his disciples the empowerment to do something. What did he empower them to do? To tread on serpents and scorpions. That's the term authority. But it's not only that, but we have authority over all the power of the enemy. Now the word power is dunamis. In this specific instance, Paul wrote it, he says, this word power means the ability to achieve your desired will. It is a warlike force. It is a warlike force. So God has given us the empowerment, the authority. He's given us the empowerment over all of the ability of the enemy to achieve his will.
Amen.
Over all the enemy's warlike force, he's given us authority. The amazing thing is, authority is a more profound sense of power than power is. Because, for instance, the same term can be used for a policeman who has been deputized. He is a policeman officer. He comes to the side of someone's vehicle. He has authority from the government over the power of this person speeding. He has authority over the criminal in a store or some lawbreaker. He has authority over that. His authority is over the power of the others. You understand? Because the authority of the criminal can come and go, or the power of the enemy comes and goes. The warlike force of a criminal can come and go, but the authority of the police officer does not come and go. It stays. Then Jesus said, nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you. The word subject it just means underneath. It means lesser in rank and power. So God has given us the power over the warlike force of the enemy and has made them lesser in rank and power than us. So in Romans, and that first passage was not written by Paul. I said it was written by Paul. I was looking at the Romans passage, which I'm going to take you to now. Romans 16, verse 20. That is by Paul. Anyway, it says, and the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. Then it has an interesting twist on the end. It says, the grace of our Lord Jesus be with you. Now, the thing is, most people confuse grace with just like, mercy. I think most people confuse grace with mercy. But the Lord doesn't waste words. And so he wouldn't say, grace and peace be unto you. Grace and mercy be unto you. When it meant the same thing. He wouldn't be saying grace and grace. Anyway. What he's saying is, there's a passage that says grace, grace. Anyway, shout to the mountain, grace, grace. Anyway, but I just need to stay on topic. Stay on topic. Okay. Anyway, this grace is an empowerment to overcome. So once again, he has given us the grace. When God says grace is sufficient, my grace is sufficient for you. We sang it. The grace is the empowerment for overcoming, not you just grin and bear it. That is a victim mindset that you have to stay where you are and just put up with it. I personally, this is a big issue for me. Now, the spiritual side, I just wanted you to know you have authority over the victim spirit. Over the spiritual mindset, over the enemy being a beacon over your head, we have authority. We have authority. We have stomping power rights to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. But I can say the other side of that is the side that I personally struggle with the most. And I've seen it through my whole, when I got married, I saw it more clearly because Verity would say, well, why are you doing that? Let me tell you one of the ways that it happens. I will go and buy something. And when we first got married, I would go buy something at a store. It would be broken. And I wouldn't return it. I didn't take it back. And Verity would say, why don't you take that back? Well, it's broken. Yes, but you didn't break it. You bought it and it was broken. Go take it back. Or it didn't fit. Or, it was the wrong part. And I just wouldn't return it. Why? Well, because, I just put up with it. Just put up with it. That's a wrong mindset that we have to intentionally shift. I have to intentionally shift. And because of repeated things that happened in our lives, we can get in this victim mindset. And I'm telling you, this is huge. I think it's tremendous I know it's tremendous for me, but I know it is especially in our day today. So three wrong mindsets that coupled with this victim attitude, because of the recurring incidents in our lives, we will have three wrong mindsets. The first one is that a person must believe that what is occurring is not normal. The wrong mindset is we just assume that, well, that's just the way things are. But the right mindset is I have to believe that it is not right for things to be wrong. Can you say that with me? It is not right for things to be wrong. Worst case scenarios is abuse. When abuse is occurring, it's a recurring thing. And the person who is abused many times will expect it. Well, I did this. Or I deserved this. Or this was my fault. It is not right for things to be wrong. In my life, it is not right for things to be wrong. When things are wrong, the wrong needs to be corrected. Whether it be my behavior, I told you I set myself up for failure, whether it be my behavior or whether it be someone else's behavior toward me. The second wrong mindset is because of repeated things that have occurred, we begin to expect that wrong thing. We begin to expect the wrong. Now see, this is a pretty big deal. It's a big deal for us to say, I can expect the best despite the past. That's a pretty big deal. I can expect the best despite the past. Can you say that with me? I expect the best despite the past. What that means is the past, there is nothing in the Christian walk that defines my future other than the Lord. My past does not define my future. My previous behavior doesn't define my future. I can change from this point forward, and I have a responsibility to expect the best despite the past. So it's not right for things to be wrong. I expect the best despite the past. The third wrong mindset is that authorities will not defend me. We expect the person in authority, whether it be, in an instance, whether it's a legal authority, whether it be a boss or a director or someone, anybody in a position of authority, whether it's your insurance agent, whether it is whatever the situation is, the expectation will be they're not going to defend me. When the right mindset is, it is right for authorities to rise up and defend me. Now you can see, if you have these three wrong mindsets, if you're expecting the worst because of the past, if you think that it is normal for things to be wrong, and if you are expecting authorities to not defend you, I will continue to walk as a victim, even though I am called more than a conqueror. God says I'm more than a conqueror, but I'm living like I'm defeated before I ever got there. I want to give you some scriptures for these three right ways of thinking. In Isaiah 5:20 it says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." See, when I expect wrong things to be wrong, when I begin to expect that, what I have already done is I have called good evil and evil good. I have done the switch. Many times I can sabotage it before the enemy even gets on the scene. Because I set myself up for failure, the enemy doesn't even have to get involved. He's changed my way of thinking, so I'm expecting the worst. And I can say, and I'm not just talking about being pessimistic, okay? I'm not talking about, there are people who are extremely positive, and that's just, that is fantastic. But we don't have to live in a pessimistic mindset where I am expecting things to be wrong. When I believe for the wrong, no wonder it occurs. I'm getting exactly what I had faith for. But it is not right for things to be wrong. And then in Jeremiah 29:11, this passage is, Jeremiah wrote this. Do you know what Jeremiah, he's called the weeping prophet. Because he is prophesying at a time, his heart is continually broken. As you read through Jeremiah, he is prophesying to a people he knows are not repenting. He knows they are falling. He knows that things are going to go from bad to worse. But he is still called on to give a message. And so he gives the message. And sometimes the message, you can see he doesn't, when the Lord gives a message of judgment through him, it's not like Jeremiah standing up there shaking his finger at everybody. Jeremiah is broken, and he tells the Lord at one time, he says, I don't want to say anything else. But if I don't say anything, my bones are going to burn. I'm just going to burn up on the inside if I don't say something. And in the midst of this whole thing, in the midst of the tragedy of the exile, in the midst of the nation of Judah and Israel being just continually under assault, there's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare, not for calamity. To give you a future and a hope. In the midst of the trauma that is going on, his decree is, I know the plans I have for you. Now, does this sound like we can expect the worst because of the past? If that was the case, it would have been a whole different word. It wouldn't be, there's good times. There are bright days ahead. If you read Isaiah chapter 60, Isaiah chapter 60 is talking about the darkness coming on the world. Anybody recognize there is darkness over the surface of the earth? And deep darkness, some of its people, right? That is straight out of Isaiah 60. But the glory of the Lord shall arise upon you, shall appear upon you. That doesn't sound like because of the past that things are supposed to be dark. You know, I believe the favor of the Lord comes on us when deep darkness is on the people. How else will we be sustained? I think this is the year of the Lord's favor. But I can't live in a victim mindset. I can't live in this wrong attitude expecting the worst because of my past. I have to reset my mind and believe that His plans are for welfare, not for harm. His plans are to give us a hope in the future, that I can expect the best despite the past. Then the third shift of making the right mindset is in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 10. And it says, "And after you've suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to His eternal glory in Christ, will Himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." It is right for authorities to rise up and defend me. It is right for authorities to rise up and defend you. It is right for authorities to rise up and defend you. When there's injustice, it is wrong. It is not right for things to be wrong. When there's injustice, it is not right that things be wrong. It is right for authorities to rise up and defend me. I can expect the best because of the past. You know, if I'm trying to lock these three things in my mind. Because I slip into one of these mindsets like that. You just boom. And then my behavior will follow this wrong mindset. I mean, can you see that happen? Oh, hopefully not in my life, but yours. You know. But it is not right for things to be wrong. We can expect the best despite the past. And it is right for authorities to rise up and defend us. It is right, Miss Sarah, for authorities to rise up and defend you because the injustice at your home. It is not right for your home to be wrong. It's a brand new home. It is not right for things to be wrong. We can, despite the past, we can expect the best. We can expect the best. How can I expect the best? I mean, is it just, they're tough times, so it doesn't mean of course there are going to be hard times. Yes, there's still going to be, I still live on the other side of the enemy lines. As long as I'm in this earth suit, I've got battles to fight. But I can expect the best despite the past. It's not right for things to be wrong. And it is right for authorities to rise up and defend us. I'm trying to lock these three things in my mind. I hope that you will just take those three things and begin to try and just grab hold of them and live from the position, because all that is living from a position of victory. I already showed you in Colossians, it says we've already been transferred to the kingdom of light, the kingdom of His beloved Son. It's this whole mindset shift is living from a position of we live as victors and not as a victim. If I will live from the place as a victor, then some of the little battles will never occur. But I find myself fighting little demons when I have authority to stomp on them and not to have to even waste time with them. But I'm tripping over things that should not be tripped over. Can you feel that? Do you see? Look at our society. People are tripping over things. I am tripping over things that I should not be tripping over. Positionally, we are called to live as overcomers. not to live defeated because of our past, not to live just putting up with it. We don't have to just put up with it. Before Christ, all they had was a sacrificial system that just helped hold it together. But now that we have the Lord, it's right for things to be right. It's not right for things to be wrong. Because of the work of Christ done on our behalf. We have authority to tread on serpents and scorpions over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means harm us. Nothing shall by any means harm us. That means these little things. In Hebrews 12 it says, let us lay aside every encumbrance and every weight and the sin that so easily entangles us, that we may run with endurance the race that is set before us. If I'm living in this victim mindset, I am carrying around weights that I will not run. I will not run. You will not run. I will expect the best despite the past. It is right for authorities to rise up and defend me. And it is not right for things to be wrong. In my life, it is not right for things to be wrong. Now, part of it, I believe, part of our job as Christians here is to enforce those things. You know, I enforce it in my life, and I enforce it around me. Because we're occupying until he returns. Or we go be. So I think that's part of what Peter did when it says that, you know, when his shadow fell on people, they were healed. It's because the sphere of authority had extended from his personal being out. And he began to enforce, it's not right for things to be wrong. Oh, that person just got healed. Why? Because Peter stopped and prayed for him? Well, sometimes. But sometimes he walked past. Why? Because in his sphere, it was not right for things to be wrong. And so healing occurred. As we take communion today, I want to just invite you. Let's appropriate the finished work of Christ on our behalf, that we could live in and operate from a position of victory. Let's pray.